Good morning. I'm John Campbell. Sorry for the delay in getting us going. I'm the chair of the Tenant Services Committee. It's Tuesday, September the 20th, and I will get right to it. I will ask for a motion to approve or change the agenda. Debbie?
Yes, I am asking for item number 8 to be moved up to the first agenda item after the conflict of interest declaration.
Great. Okay, all in favor? Approval of the agenda. Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none, all right, so then we'll move quickly to item number 8, which is the update on tenant-led improvements in basement spaces. I think what I'll do is I'm going to go just directly to questions. I'll take the report as read, and I'm sure we'll flush out all of the issues here with questions from committee members. Uba or Debbie, who would like to proceed first? Debbie, did you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, John. And thank you to staff who worked on this, especially our folks at Facilities Management. My understanding from the questions that I have been hearing around the basements were cosmetic. I don't think people were looking to make the ceilings higher or deepen the floor or any of those things. What I heard was some folks wanted to separate out the laundry area. Others may have wanted to paint, probably put up a divider. I'm not sure it has necessarily has to be permanent. I've read the report, and I understand that yes, if we were to do the kind of things that were written here, then the insurance would have some concerns that there are issues around fire and those kinds of things. But that wasn't my understanding. I'm wondering if there is a compromise position here where TCHC can lay out that tenants are allowed at their own expense and following any conditions that TCHC finds necessary are able to do ABC, but not, 1, 2, 3. I'm just trying to figure out a compromise here because this is feeling like all or nothing. And this has been on our agenda for the last couple of years, if not longer, that tenants are wanting to. And this is especially, and I remember a lot of this conversation started when we had that shooting in Downsview, I believe it was, and parents just wanting to be able to keep their children inside and not outside as much, especially in communities with high gun violence, whether or not and I'm not suggesting at all that the gun violence is coming out of the TCSC community, but the surrounding communities, as we've seen at some of the birthday parties over the years. Uba, I'm not sure if you have anything to add.
And thanks, Debbie. You sum it up well. And again, thank you very much for the staff who have been trying to support us for the last 2 years, as you said, Debbie. Parents and tenants ask many times that some already built their basement in the past, and inspections happen, and then staff went and say you either demolish it on your own expense or you will be evicted. And a lot of tenants are saying all we want to do is update and upgrade the property, and it's not only for cosmetic reason, but it's more so safety reason, as been indicated in the past. And as Debbie said, a lot of people want to keep their kids indoors, make sure they're safe. They have a space that's, feel at home and safe and, clean and nice. And I'll be able to either study, because last 2, 3 years we've been in the pandemic, people were indoors. Still, the pandemic is not gone completely. And people are saying we want to be able to have a space where we feel at home, keep our kids indoors and safe, as I said, and be able to work if we're working from home. Also, our kids can have recreation area where they do their homework, where we are, privileged to have a tea or coffee and, invite friends and what have you. And tenants are saying the cost is not going to be a burden to TCHC. We are willing to pay out of pocket, even if we need a permit from the city in order to make sure we're aligned and on the same page with everyone. We are willing to get that permit from the city through the assistance of TCHC. We're also willing to use constructors and companies that are already pre-approved by TCHC. So just to make sure, there are no liability later on, or people are fixing things that is not according with TCHC's in standard. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. And people say many, many times, we want to have same privilege that other people will have who have their own homes and, fix their basement a bit. And the way they see it is just to upgrade the property, but also to, more importantly, to have a safe space. Thank you.
Okay, so who's Alan? Are you speaking from staff on this issue?
Yes, thank you, Chair Campbell, and thank you, Director Douglas and Director Farah, for your questions.
Alan, could you just quickly outline very briefly what is permitted and what is permitted and what is not intended to be permitted?
Absolutely. So, intended to be permitted, tenants would be able to paint any existing walls or ceilings that are there. They could install draperies, window coverings, could also install drapes within the basement space to create a division. Install like loose rugs, flooring, to be able, to put down like an area rug, things like that, to create that type of space. General decorating, putting furniture there, all those things would be allowed in the basement space. What we're saying we're not able to approve are items that require a building permit, such as putting up walls to create a separate room, because that does present challenges potentially with the building code, depending on what the room could be used for. Also, plumbing, electrical, things like that that require a building permit. So if it doesn't require a building permit, which would be the things that we have listed in the report, then that's absolutely fine to have those things done. And it's when we get into more extensive renovations that would require a building permit, such as putting up walls, creating rooms, things of that nature.
Questions?
Well, can you speak to that, Alan? Why is that? What is the rationale behind why we're not allowing that? You can speak to that, please.
Certainly. So we've taken, we've had extensive conversations within TCHC, as well as looking at, we've spoken to other external housing, other social housing providers outside of TCHC to understand their policies. And when work is done that requires a building permit, so one, it would require TCHC to apply for the permit. We also have to make sure that all building codes would be met. That's something that would be difficult to orchestrate, as well as expensive when you're looking at hiring a qualified contractor, the time to get permits, things like that, as well as it does present risk in terms of having separated spaces in a basement, in case any of them are used as bedrooms or anything of that nature. There is risk that's associated with that. And we have spoken to our insurance and our risk department as well. And it is deemed to be a large risk to have those types of activities done in a basement. And specifically what it is creating separate rooms, because then you've created a room in a basement that would not, there are requirements from a building code perspective in terms of adequate sized egress in the event of a fire, things of that nature.
So, Alan, if I may, sorry, but if I may, if this was a privately owned townhouse and someone wanted to add a room, they would have to obtain a building permit and would all have to be done to code, and city inspectors would be reviewing the work. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
So everything would have to be, so the issues about whether or not it's built to code or not, I think they're like, that doesn't seem relevant to me, because city inspectors would make sure that things are built to code.
There would be a responsibility. I mean, city inspectors do come, but they don't accept the responsibility. They would review it, but I haven't seen this.
And a building permit would only be issued if it was a valid, if it was valid and within the code.
That's correct.
No,
You'd have to, but you'd have to have drawings, stamped
Correct.
drawings, in order to get a building permit.
Right.
Everybody understands that, correct? You have to have a drawing that's stamped by an engineer or an architect that goes with your application for a building permit. And it sounds like it's TCHC that would have to get the building permit, not the tenant. Just to be
Correct.
clear.
Correct, Director Fletcher. As the owner of the building, it would be TCHC that would be required to apply for the permit, would be required to submit the drawings, would be responsible for the project from start to finish.
So I'm hearing,
Not quite, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing different things, Alan. So TCHC is saying no because of the additional work and cost to TCHC. Is that what the issue is?
There would be additional work that we required. I understand, through the discussions I've had, that it would be, you're indicating that the tenant would pay for the work. So I understand that from that perspective. There would be staff, though, time that would be involved, and we're not staffed and resourced to undertake these projects, which small projects do take a significant amount of time. I also understand too, in discussions with our insurance department and with our insurer, that if we were to have spaces in basements that could be considered living space because they've been divided, then there would be implications to TCHC too, with our insurance as well.
To have a space in the basement where students are able to study? Why would there be implications with the insurance?
I can speak to that. I mean, the space is generic. Space can be used for multiple purposes. The challenge that would exist from TCHC's perspective would be on an ongoing basis to ensure that that space was only used for a specific purpose without invading the privacy of a tenant. And we'd have limited ability to do that as the landlord. And the concern would be that a space that's subdivided in a basement might be adopted for other uses other than simply studying. And so that if there was ever an event in a townhouse, that a fire, for example, somebody's in that basement space and can't escape, there's a risk to the tenant. There's an ongoing risk from a health and safety, life and safety perspective. There's also an ongoing risk to TCHC of liability in that it has now allowed a space to be created in one of its buildings that doesn't have appropriate fire egress.
But Dara, that would not be permitted according to the code. I mean, the code would determine whether or not it was proper or not. Is that not the case?
That's right. Or even before that, there's nothing now to stop anyone from using their basement as a sleeping area.
I agree with both John and Debbie. Who's to say people are not using right now as we speak, with or without building the basement? People are not using. We have cases where 10 family members are sharing 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, right? And we don't know what's happening. It's just the way I see it. If there is a will, there is a way. If we want to accommodate our tenants and to do so in a safely manner, I'm not saying let's risk anyone's life or jeopardize people's life, but this I think could be done if we look at outside the box and see how we're not risking what we're doing as TCHC, but also meet the needs of our tenants.
Can I just ask a question? Kazuba, you said there were people that were told, get rid of that or move out or evict you. From TCHC's perspective, how many of those situations have there been? And what was the nature of the buildings or of the construction?
So many
Do we
people.
have that? No, I'm asking staff.
Sorry.
Do we have that type of information?
I'm not aware of any such circumstance, but others may be.
I'm not aware either, Dara.
So apparently we have a disconnect because that's been happening, but we're not aware of it. So it'd be important to understand that. I also I understand both sides, because structurally, when you make a change, it requires the tenant would have to get an architect, the tenant would have to get all of that, and then TCHC, they'd apply with TCHC. That isn't clear in here either. And what the costs and everything would be, kind of looking at that to understand what those would be. How many situations have been identified that need to be, people build things all the time. They might build a third story on their house without permission. And then you have to go to the committee of adjustment. You may get turned down. You may have to take it down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm a little too familiar with all of these things because of all these rules. But I just think we should know a bit more. And then we should also be able to look at some ideas about modular. Are there things that, the accordion walls that you can just pull out and put back?
That's what I was
based
actually
on
thinking.
use?
Yeah.
They have them all over the place so that you're not structurally changing the building.
Yeah.
And I don't think any tenant, whether you're living in TCHC or you're living in a privately owned place, you have to get certain permissions in order to do a structural adjustment on the building. And that includes the building permit. But it does seem to me that there's all kinds of ways in offices and other things. There's things you pull across, you can move it back, you can create space in a different way. And I'm not sure that would have the same requirement for the building permit, the same requirement for the issue related to fire, those kinds of things. And we should be looking at that too. But I just need to know, we do annual inspections every year. Are we talking a handful? Have people been told they have to take things out? What other options are there? It's a very cumbersome process to get the drawings, to get the building permit, but it can be done. And I'm hearing that the building permit then creates a problem at the TCHC end. So we're trying to find a way to accommodate people that need space, that need singular space or space to be changed in large, could be a large basement, without creating other problems. So I'd like to know, Alan, do you know anything about modular or movable spaces, movable walls, movable accordions, whatever they're called? I don't know what they're called.
Thank you, Director Fletcher. Yes, and that's perhaps we weren't clear enough, but when we were saying general decorating and placement of, we called it furniture, to create space. For example, if someone wanted to create, bookshelves that were delineating space, as long as they were properly secured, obviously from the tenant's perspective, to make sure that there was no health and safety hazard, that absolutely would be permittable. What we're saying is, to your point, we can't build a permanent wall with a door that creates a room, a separate space. But if furniture was to be placed, or there's different types of like curtains that could be hung down from the ceiling to delineate different spaces within a larger space, that absolutely is permittable.
So you're talking about a door. That
No,
creates a room.
We couldn't put like a permanent wall with a door, even without a door, still having a permanent wall. But you could create, through the placement of various types of furniture, or hanging like curtains, things of that nature, to delineate spaces within a room. That would be perfectly acceptable, because it would not require a building permit.
Yeah. Uber, my sense is that there isn't going to be much movement on this. I'm not sure, as vice chair of this committee, what it is that you want to go back to tenants with.
Can I just make one other suggestion? That this is something that architects have to think about all the time, and just having a curtain, but I'm just looking at something that's movable.
Yeah, movable.
And there's lots of people out there that know how to do that. And I think it would be helpful if we could identify someone who could figure that out. We have lots of architects on our hubs. Maybe one of them could figure that out.
I think is it not incumbent upon the tenant to make a suggestion as to what they would like?
Well, just some ideas so
Hmm.
that
To know
people
what
just
the
need
options are.
here's some options outside of getting drawings, getting a building permit, etc. Changing this that aren't structural. There's structural and non-structural. And Alan, you've given some ideas of non-structural, but I don't think it's broad enough. I just don't think it's a big enough palette of things that are possible that give you some space definition, but don't structurally impinge on the building.
I can engage an architect then to provide some options and bring it back to the committee.
Get some ideas on that before. Is that Uba? Would that work for you? If we get that?
That would be
Okay.
great. Thank you.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Paula.
I would like to, sorry, go ahead, Debbie.
No, I was just saying thanks, Paula, for
Yeah, thanks, Paula.
Alternative.
So I have a couple of questions. What would we anticipate would be the demand for these Al, and this is for you. What could we anticipate over the course of 6 months would be the demand for these types of improvements? How many units in how many units would people be asking and making a request for these types of changes? And bearing in mind that there's a considerable cost that the tenant would have to bear.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. It would. I doubt that it would be significant, but I really don't have any knowledge of how many people have requested it. Personally, I haven't had it requested other than come up through this committee. I haven't had it asked to me personally. I don't know if anyone in operations has had any sense if they've had a number of requests, but they certainly haven't come forward to me other than through this committee.
So if we were as a board to approve a process by which TCHC would act on behalf of the tenants, provided that the tenants provided all of the architectural drawings and paid for the permits, if we were to as a company, TCHC, allow this. I mean, it essentially results in an improvement to the space.
Mhm.
I mean, you're telling me we don't seem to have any understanding as to, because we did cite cost as being a reason, but we don't really have an estimate or an expectation as to what that cost might be. It might turn out to be negligible.
It still would require staff time to be involved with it. And if we were to get a number of them, then yes, it would require additional staff time. Even one would require, staff time to work through it, because we as the owner are still responsible to, go for the building permit, ensure that the drawings are acceptable, work with the building department, arrange the inspections. As the owner, that would all fall to us, as well as we would have oversight of the project and be responsible as the owner of the property. I understand, that the architect would be hired and paid for by the tenant, but TCHC would still need to be involved
Well, there
almost
could be
from
cost
sequence.
recovery for that as well, Alan.
There could
Right?
be.
Could there not be?
Well, you're not going to.
There could. It would just require having the staff.
Oh, I think it's.
Sorry, there could be cost recovery. There would need to be legal agreements in place. There would need to be enforcement mechanisms in the case of a tenant who defaulted on the obligation to repay. And there would be an ongoing risk in a circumstance where such an agreement existed that ultimately those enforcement mechanisms would be unsuccessful and TCHC wouldn't have a mechanism to recover money that it had expended in connection with the renovation.
Which essentially would be staff time.
Staff time, permit time, construction costs. If we had to complete a renovation that had been abandoned by the tenant partway through the process, construction costs that we wouldn't be able to recover.
Okay, well, I think we can take this offline and discuss it further. to see where we might go with this. I mean, I don't know if we would even look at doing a pilot period where we would entertain this, try a couple of projects, see how they work out, but I think it merits perhaps the discussion.
Absolutely.
Debbie, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, just to remind Alan, it would be great to hear what are some of the modular options that are there. But I like the idea, John, of looking to see if there are one or two that we can pilot and see what that all means.
Can I just say, do we have to look as well, since you're creating new spaces, if that would create an actual new rooms, what would that mean for the rental? Because you're rented a certain space, certain number of square footage, if it's bedrooms or whatever, does that change anything as far as, if you've got a 3-bedroom house and now you may have a 5 bedrooms, is that a difference? I have no idea how we cost out.
I think just on that specific issue, I think the intention would be that any space that is created temporarily wouldn't be bedroom space. We wouldn't want to be inadvertently creating bedroom space in basements without proper fire code compliance. So I think that would be the initial starting point, but we can absolutely look at that.
All right, so I think we'll move on to the remainder of the agenda. We'll look for, Uba, did you have anything you wanted to close with?
No, Paula and you and Debbie covered also. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, so motion to receive the report.
And to get an update, right?
Okay,
Yes.
and to get that update on possible movable temporary walls, all right, or architectural options. Moved by Uba, all in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, so now in regard to in regard to the rest of the agenda, I will ask for items to be held.
1 minute.
Councillor Fletcher?
No, I'm just going back, so I'm looking at it.
Okay. So I'll just tell you what I would like to hold item 6 very briefly. We've done this. We'll hold item 7. And of course, item 9 and item 10D. And is there anything else anyone would like to hold?
I think we should always just get a verbal on the performance measures, and if there's anything that the COO or CEO is
On
concerned about.
10A, okay.
I think we should I think it should be way further up in the agenda, because is there anything that, from an oversight perspective, a board oversight perspective,
Okay.
is there anything that top management want to flag as an issue for us?
All right, so that's fine. We'll hold that one. That's good.
Are you going to say anything about you have a new OACH?
Yes, we're not at that point of the agenda, Councillor Fletcher.
You're holding that, right?
Yes, I said we're holding item 9.
I missed that. I missed that, and I apologize.
Important to pay attention at all times.
I know, and I didn't. I'm very sorry. Bad.
All right, so we'll ask for a motion to confirm the minutes of the public meeting on July the 6th. Moved by Marcel. Thank you. All in favor? And move to receive the business arising from the public meeting minutes, action update, which is item 5. Moved by Uba. Can you move that, please? Move as received that. All in favor? And then motion to receive items 10A, B, C, and item 11.
No, I asked for item A for us to get flagging, a flag. Yeah, right? Just to hold that as well, if there's anything to flag.
We're holding it, yes. So I said 10, B, C, and then 11. Just
not to contradict you, but you did say A.
Sorry.
That's
okay.
Yes.
So
it's really important to listen as I was listening to you very acutely.
So we would like a motion to approve items. Receive for information 10.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. I'm advised that we now have a request for a deputation on item 10B. Oh,
10B.
sorry, 10B, yes.
10B, oh yes, deputation.
Was that just a new request, Mr.
No, I think that came in yesterday.
All right. Okay, so then motion to approve item 10C. Moved by Uba, all in favor. And item 11, the tenant's first update, motion to approve the receipt of that. Moved by Mohammed, all in favor. And now we go back to item 6, which is the
Could
update
we
on.
just, can I ask to vary that, and we'll just get the deputation, there's one, if we just hear it and then proceed with the business, is that an option for you?
It'll
And
take
someone's
us a
not
minute
waiting
to,
around?
it
Oh,
will take
okay.
us a minute to connect with the deputant.
Okay,
Okay, why don't we just carry on?
just go right ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to consider that, so it's just
Okay.
done.
Update on modern TO. Jag, can you give a sort of the quick update? So they're looking to move TCHC into a new hub environment at Toronto City Hall. And it would be good to hear
Metro.
your Metro
Metro.
Hall, right? Yes, they should go to the old City Hall, Paula. What are they doing with old City Hall?
You know, John, you can ask John Burnside that later.
I'll ask Mayor Tory that.
For you, Chair Campbell, if I could refer this one over to our VP, Alan Murray. He's been taking lead on this one. Alan, would you mind?
Thank you, Jag. Thank you, Chair Campbell. As requested at the July 28th TCHC board meeting, the report in front of you today is to respond to the questions of whether the relocation of TCHC head office functions from 931 Yonge Street to Metro Hall took into account the tenant's first principles and to have city staff leading modern TO attend the TSC meeting. So today with us, we have Sylvia Fraser from the City of Toronto, who is with Modern TO, as well as we also have Peter Heron from Create TO, and both Sylvia and Peter will be available to assist with questions once we finish with the report. So there were a number of factors that were taken into consideration by the Modern TO team when determining moving 931 Yonge Street functions into Metro Hall. Factors included such things as access to public transit. Like 931 Yonge Street, Metro Hall has easy access by TTC for tenants attending the building. Access to parking. Metro Hall has actually access to more parking in the area than 931 Yonge does that would be available for tenants who wanted to attend to meet with staff at Metro Hall when they're there. And a dedicated reception. So like 931 Yonge Street, which currently has a dedicated reception area for tenants who are attending the building, the TCHC space at Metro Hall will have a dedicated reception to welcome tenants who choose to attend the TCHC head office in Metro Hall in person. Accessibility for meeting space for committee meetings such as this and for board meetings was also a consideration. And as part of Modern TO, TCHC, once housed at Metro Hall, will have access to run its board and committee meetings from the fully accessible council meeting space at City Hall, which will be an improvement over the meeting space that we currently have at 931 Yonge Street. Modern TO and TCHC are confident that upon the move to Metro Hall, TCHC tenants will have equivalent or improved access to TCHC staff as required. Modern TO has also committed to working with Create TO to ensure that the timing between the exiting of 931 Yonge Street and its future redevelopment will not be a prolonged period of time. And as I mentioned, joining me today, we have Sylvia and Peter, and we'd be pleased to answer what questions you have.
Great, thank you, Alan. Questions from committee members?
Question. I just wanted to know, this is about tenants, but this is a big move for TCHC. And could you just remind me, Jag, where has this been reported directly to the board itself, or is it all going through our committee only?
Through you, Chair, Councilor Fletcher, I believe it's going primarily through this committee. I know it's been mentioned at the board, but primarily through this committee.
Yeah, because I think it actually has to do with operations, parking, everything has to do with staff. That's not part of our committee. So I'm hearing the tenant part is going to be well handled. but I think where it's our obligation to make sure that everything is smooth from the staff point of view and signed off by you. So I think that this report needs to just go to the board for information, for an update, and that you're able to provide information on that too. Is there sufficient staff parking? Any issues of any kind from the perspective of the operations of the company itself in this move? And then we'll sign off on the tenant part, but I think there's a little more.
Certainly, Councillor Fletcher, and I believe Mr. Murray's prepared to be able to respond to much of that.
Right.
There's been great planning with the city as far as the transition with staff.
I think it'll be helpful to have the meetings, and that board meeting at 931 Yonge Street it's really a horrific location, as we all know. So one of the committee rooms will be great because it's all set up for maximum participation and being able to see and hear everything.
And thank you, Director Fletcher. And I can speak to our understanding was this report was to deal with the impact on tenants, but absolutely
Right.
from a staff perspective, we have been working closely with Modern TO for probably 2 years now. Could actually probably longer than that. COVID seems to have muddied the timelines.
I'm just going to interrupt you because this committee has nothing to do with the staff. It's somewhere else completely. So all I'm saying is I'm happy with how you've been working for the tenants, but I'd like to make sure that from a board perspective, that we get that at the board as far as the staff are concerned, Alan, and that everything's fine for that side of the house too.
Certainly.
Okay, yeah. I know it's been great work, but we have no purview. That's not our purview.
I have a couple of questions if other committee members don't have anything. Other committee members have, Marcel.
Thank you. All right, so if everything is going to be moved to Metro Hall, the accessibility for people with disabilities, I know they would have a little bit better access getting into the building, into the meeting rooms. But what about the people that do drive but have disability parking permits? I know that a lot of times now, a lot of the green P spaces, you still have to pay. And I know that even with people that do drive who are that are disabled, some of them have like a limited budget. Would there be any kind of like space designated specifically for TCHC tenants with disabilities who have disability parking permits? That's my question. Or even is that possible? And if not, can you look at it?
There's no parking anywhere down there at Metro Hall.
Yeah, the parking available at Metro Hall would be similar to what we have at 931 Yonge, which would be public parking in the vicinity for that. I imagine, I know that
there isn't any. There's no public parking.
Not in the building indirectly, but there is public parking around Metro
No,
Hall.
there is not.
There
Hardly
is.
any. We should find out how much.
There's public parking at Roy Thompson Hall.
Correct. And so any of the public parking that is in the area would have designated spots for accessible parking spots.
It's not green P parking, though. It's not street parking, John, which is
Right.
relatively cheap compared to parking at Metro Hall. I think it's quite expensive. That's all. I think Marcel's raised a really important point from tenants' perspective.
So I don't know if that was it. We didn't really get a satisfactory answer there about residents with disabilities being able to park.
Through you, Chair Campbell, could we come back to you with that information as far as what lots surrounding the area?
Sure. And maybe even some sort of accommodation could be made on the dates of committee meetings, that spaces could be set aside or saved or something like that. But it'd be great if you could come back to us with a little bit more thought. How much does TCHC, how much will be saved from this move? I guess this is for I guess this is for the city, or maybe Alan, this is for you. I'm not sure. How much is looking to be saved from this transition?
I would have to defer to modern TO. I'm not sure, Sylvia, if you have those numbers with you, because there is rent that would be saved at 931 Yonge, but then there would be obviously rent at Metro Hall.
For you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. So there are savings that will be realized from the relocation, and I'll have to ask my colleague Peter Heron at Creatio, because the site is being redeveloped. So there will be savings, operating and obviously capital, that will be generated from there. In terms of the relocation to Metro Hall, there will be no cost to TCHC. Meaning the TCH will not be paying rent, so you will be a tenant in our buildings, although it will be a landlord-tenant relationship within the Metro Hall. This is part of the vision of consolidating real estate, and that we will be able to leverage the operating and the ability to house the head office in Metro Hall and at no cost to CCHC.
So right now, Alan, we pay rent to who at 931 Yonge?
Sorry, I shouldn't have said rent. There'd be some operating costs that would be saved because we own the building.
We own the building, 931.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're moving to Metro Hall and there's no cost to occupy space there, I'm being told.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. And I'm a little bit baffled that Metro Hall has so much excess space to be able to accommodate not only Toronto Community Housing, but the TTC and other city entities. And I understand there's supposed to be a flexible workspace. Jag, sorry, I guess it's Alan. In terms of how much space we presently have, how much space will we be going to?
Square feet.
Yeah, or a percentage. Are we now going to be occupied? Are we now going to have 25% of what we're accustomed to, or is it 30%, or what have you done? What kind of calculation is that?
There is a thank you, Chair Campbell. There is a calculation that's done by Modern TO, and Sylvia, I know that it was updated after COVID, and is it about 1.3, I believe? Is that, or what's the correct number in terms of the amalgamation of space?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I will have to send you directly the actual square footage, and I want to be correct, and I don't have it at my hand right now, so I don't want to speak out of term. However, we are looking at a mobility ratio of 1 to 1.7. So that means that approximately 2 to 3 days in the office. The reason why we're able to accommodate a number of our agencies, 4 agencies in scope, into Metro Hall through this very complex consolidation is because of the mobility ratio. Now, the mobility ratio of 1 to 1.7 is an average mobility ratio. What we are actually doing is working with all our divisions and agencies like TCHC to understand the exact ratio that would be applied based on the functional requirements. We want to make sure that the space is adequate and it provides for the operations of the specific occupants. So while we're saying an average mobility, it's really just the average. We're now getting into more details to understand the operations to make sure that we allocate the space. So again,
is TCHC looking at having a floor, 2 floors, 2.5 floors? What can you tell us about that?
I believe it's a floor and a half, is it not?
It's a floor and a half right now at Metro Hall. That is correct, through you, Mr. Chair. But again, we want to be precise and even more specific and make sure that it also allows for growth for the future. So we are in those detailed conversations with TCHC staff. We've been working with Alan along the way to make sure that we understand that and we can make those adjustments based on the needs of the organization.
And then Jag, from a work performance standpoint, and I guess it can, I mean, obviously, if people are in the office, they have more of an opportunity to talk to each other and to kick back ideas and to meet on an impromptu basis rather than scheduling something. Is it your vision that a certain number of TCHC employees will be 5 day a week employees, or will everybody be a, 2 to 3 day employee?
Through you, Chair Campbell, I think that's yet to be determined. There may be some staff that would be there regularly. There's no doubt. There are some instances where that may be the case, but what we're, post-pandemic in our current experience is the vast majority of staff would be able to fit into that 2 to 3 day category, and we're working. Although Ellen is the primary lead on our relationship with Modern TO. Both Barbara and Paula will be involved as well as far as change management and working with our staff in order to prepare for that future state. And but that is work that we're undertaking now.
Okay, all right. Those are all my questions. Does anyone else on the committee have any other questions?
No, I just want to reiterate that that has nothing to do with tenants. It's got to
No,
make
I know.
sure that, I know, I'm just going to
Yeah.
say again, that the operations, our job is to make sure that operationally TCHC is whole and can undertake all of the important work in this move. And it's not the purview of this committee. So I'm going to reiterate, this whole discussion, I think, has to take place either at BIFAC or the board or governance or wherever, but it can't be a piecemeal thing because this is a very big deal.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Well, part of my question was to see
I understand.
if people are working remotely, are we working as cohesively as we should, which is
Got
on
it.
behalf of tenants, right?
But also just for working conditions,
Right.
HR, everything else, that is making sure the due diligence is undertaken that's required by our board. That's all, John. I'm not
Okay.
critical. I'm just
Yep.
saying I'm glad you raised that because you showed me why it's so important we have that conclusive approval.
Okay, so motion to receive the report.
Did the committee want to refer this report to the board then, or is it content to receive
Yes.
it here?
Well, I'd like to hear from Jag how we're going to have that discussion to satisfy not just the tenant requirements, plus what Marcel has really brought up, which is very important, about the parking for accessibility, but whether or not there's something that the board would have to give a stamp of approval, then we're making sure that we're asking the right questions and that we've asked you the right questions, like John just did.
Through you, Chair Campbell, if the intent is to refer this to the board, what we can put together a number of key points that we think that might be helpful to inform a board discussion regarding the operational impacts and the staff implications beyond the tenant implications that have been discussed today. And certainly we can begin that conversation with the board next week. If that's the intent of, if that would be the will of the committee, happy for us to pull that together to have that discussion next week.
That would be great. I guess following on Councillor Fletcher's thoughts, I mean, 731 Young.
931,
Sorry, 931 Young. Although it's not a beautiful building, it is close to the subway, and people can walk in the front door and they see TCHC. And I would not want to see really a situation where they have trouble getting to Metro Hall. We're somewhere between the 9th and 10th floors or something like that. It's difficult to figure out. In a way, the landmark of TCHC, tenants know that. I don't know how often tenants visit TCHC. I know that every time I've been there in the past, which was for meetings, there seem to have always been tenants milling about looking for information or trying to get some action. And I would hope, and I'm just questioning as to whether or not the new location just will be as accessible to tenants and much, along the lines that I guess Marcel was suggesting. So I don't know if the intent is to put TCHC on the first and second floors of Metro Hall, but sorry, go ahead, Jag.
Through you, Chair Campbell, that's a great question and great comment. It's something that staff have been considering as well, and is going to be part of our discussions with Modern TO as to how we will engage tenants as they do enter the building. I do believe, I don't believe we're on the first and second, but what we have started to have discussions with the Modern TO staff on is how we would receive staff in the building and what that flow would look like, because it has been a concern of ours as well.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so motion to receive the report. Uba, can you move that, please? Uba's moved it. All in favor? All right, thank you.
John, just to remind you that City Home was all run out of the City of Toronto City Hall before City Home, which was the City of Toronto's
Right.
arm, was directly operated, and all of that was run out of City Hall proper. There was no other.
Right.
Location.
Okay.
FYI.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to number 7, Councillor Fletcher, would you just like to give a brief report in public for the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee?
Thank you. I'll be very brief that the Community Safety Advisory Committee continues to work on the categorization of communities with the 4 categories. One is those communities that are just chugging along with very few problems. That's category 1, category 2, those that, you know, often have some kind of interruption or burst of problems, gun violence or vulnerabilities or just issues in the communities, mental health issues that reoccur. Number 3 is those communities that kind of structurally and ongoing have difficulties regarding vulnerability, a lot of vulnerable tenants there. And item number 4, category 4, is those communities that are really suffering and have a lot of gun violence. So looking at how to approach each one of these, starting with 3 and 4 very particularly, and the staff have really done a great job in kind of boiling all of those down. And then there's the review of the community safety unit that is being undertaken at the request of this board by the City of Toronto, and those terms of reference have almost been finalized. And then we have Neptune 4, which is just ongoing as far as any terms of reference for that. That is really what our business is, and that would be my report, unless you want me to delve into anything any further, Mr.
No,
Chair.
that sounds great. Any questions or any other comments from committee members? Okay, so seeing none, Mohammed, could you move to receive the report from Councillor Fletcher? Moved by Mohammed. All in favor? Thank you. Next item is OACH, and it's my pleasure to the OACH biannual update, January to June 2022. It's my pleasure to introduce Summer Nudell, a breath of fresh air. Summer began at OACH at its inception as one of the 2 first early resolution officers. Prior to this, she was a family law mediator at Legal Aid Ontario, and prior to that, she was a director of an adult day healthcare center in Los Angeles. She left OACH in 2017 to focus on other areas of interest, including teaching, and has been teaching in the social service worker program at Centennial College. When Melanie Martin, the senior advisor to the commissioner, left in 2021 on a maternity leave, Summer returned to cover this role, and she's been working with Cynthia up until recently when she stepped in as the interim commissioner of housing equity for the balance of the contract. I met with Summer a few weeks ago, and she's a delight to work with, and I know has some great ideas. And Summer, welcome to the Tenant Services Committee, and I'll let you take it away with the discussion about the most recent OACH report.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Campbell. So I'm just going to give you some highlights from the report that you all have. This report covers a period of time from January to June of 2022, and the comparisons were made to the previous 6-month period, July to December of 2021. This period represents the first period with the expanded mandate. Total referrals for this period were 753. The early resolution officers worked with 577 of those files, and 372 of these files were from the family portfolio. There was a difference in the experience of case management in these cases, and this requires some further analysis. The managed arrears for this period represent 1.16 million. This was from accessing external funds, direct payments from tenants and their families, resolving losses of subsidy, processing annual reviews and interim reviews, and brokering repayment agreements. The average arrears at the time of referral have decreased in this period from 2,559 to 1,663. And the average month of referral to the OACH decreased from 17 months to 16 months. However, a further breakdown showed that files which were reviewed under the new arrears collection process made it to OACH on average of 4 months. And files which were processed under the old arrears collection process made it to OACH on average of 24 months. So this is a positive outcome for the new arrears collection process, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about the ACP in a moment. As far as the audit findings, we presented them again in theme-based audit categories, and I'll just highlight a few findings from each category. With respect to recommendations related to administrative delays, issues with the N4 remain the same at 63%. This includes any error related to the N4. Referral to the OACH within the timelines has improved from 58% to 21%, and utilizing the community services coordinators and doing so within the timelines improved from 67% to 16%. Under the category of recommendations related to non-compliance with policies and procedures, we have created a new lens to audit files that fall under the new arrears collection process. The new ACP requires tenant services coordinators to make one fulsome attempt to discover the underlying issue causing the arrears and/or to resolve the arrears prior to referring the file to the OACH. In 36 cases, which was 7%, we found that there were issues with this step. It was not clear from the documentation that this effort was made. This is an area we also seek to study more closely as more files come to us which fall under the new ACP. As a comparison, the old arrears collection process required staff to make 3 attempts to reach a tenant. If these attempts were documented, the file could then be referred to the OACH. The change with respect to the new arrears collection process is the effort that is first required of staff to attempt to resolve the arrears prior to referring to the OACH. Under quality of service, the most significant recommendation in this category was to reach out to tenants' caseworkers. These are tenants that are in receipt of Ontario Works or the Ontario Disability Support Program. And we found that by gaining their consent to speak to their worker, we can often resolve arrears. This recommendation was made 19% of the time. With respect to the mandate expansion, the increase in referrals to the OACH in this period of time resulted in an increase in workload that became unmanageable. To offset this, we began by sending files back to TCHC for a variety of reasons. These included that the arrears were paid off between the time the referral was made and the ERO's first contact with the tenant. Also, tenants who were already working well with their tenant service coordinator, tenants who were not living in the unit, and tenants who were in the process of completing an in situ application. This did not curb referrals enough, and on June 6th, we imposed a bottleneck of 25 referrals from TCHC per week, and the EROs are still working to clear the backlog from the files which were coming in more quickly before that bottleneck was imposed. While the new ACP, has resulted in positive changes in some aspects of the eviction prevention strategy, as I talked about already, more is needed to ensure that files are coming to the OACH as a last resort. As part of the biannual report, we did a review of the arrears collection process, and TCH is undertaking their own review as well. We compared the files received in this period under the old arrears collection process and the new arrears collection process, and found improvements in all categories except for that one fulsome attempt. we found that in 71% of cases, the files came to us on time, but no meaningful attempt was made first. In 36 instances, we found that direct contact did occur, but there was no documented follow-up with respect to resolving the arrears. Of note, mistakes related to the N4 improved 45% under the new arrears collection process. Also of note, under the old ACP, 27% of the files had a repayment agreement brokered by TCHC prior to the OACH referral. And under the new ACP, only 5% had already entered into a repayment agreement with TCHC. So I believe this speaks to the need to emphasize the fulsome attempt prior to referring to the OACH. So based on our findings, we make the following recommendations. Staff training on the OACH approach related to the one meaningful engagement with tenants. Amend the new ACP to provide time for TCHC to resolve some of the arrears themselves. Support staff to identify arrears after the first missed payment and encourage staff to schedule meetings with tenants early and talk about the arrears collection process at the meeting. It's our expectation that with these changes, it'll shift the focus to the tenant services coordinators to resolve more arrears files and reduce the number of files that require OACH intervention, which can better accommodate the expanded mandate.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from committee members? I see Councillor Fletcher, are you there?
Yeah, I'm running low on my battery, so I turned it off. But thank you very much for your first report. It's very good. And just on the recommendations, and I guess, Mr. Chair, if you have anything to say, because you'll just report through you, I wanted to just make a couple of comments. One, staff training on the OACH approach, and I guess it would be ensuring that HR is determining if there are, if that's just a general problem that these aren't being resolved, or are you overseeing if certain staff members may be having trouble getting that meaningful engagement or following that procedure? I think that's important. I'm sure you're doing it like that, because then it would be staff training. I'm just asking Barbara, are they under your jurisdiction? Or I guess we should be clear on that. Are the OACH staff entirely under your jurisdiction, Summer? Or does HR have something? Sorry, OACH staff are under you, but the TCHC staff that are referring or that may need training, they're under Ms. Schulman. So I'm trying to make sure here that we can be satisfied that if people are having trouble with this approach, that they are getting assistance and that you're noticing if there's patterns for employees.
Perhaps I can just jump in through the chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor. We work with operations staff and with the OACH to identify training needs for staff, and my team would provide support to staff in both of those areas. So we work closely with the client divisions to identify what the needs are, and then our team would provide support, either whether it's within operations or within the OACH.
But I guess I'm asking, then I'll just go to JAG, because this is, if there's a lot of time being wasted, and let's say 25% of the staff just haven't got with the program yet, that's different than everybody doesn't know how to do it and not following the process or the protocol. So at what point do people get that extra help if they turns out that they need it, not on the OACH side, but on the TCH staff side?
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher, and through you, Chair Campbell. I think it is very much a team approach from the expertise that we are deriving from OACH and Summer and her team, as well as what Nadia is doing to review some of the process adjustments that we need to make internally. As well, there's two other components, Councillor Fletcher. It's also the audit findings or the OACH findings that have been reported to us as far as the higher frequency opportunities for us to adjust. Then coupled with some training opportunities that would be through Barbara and her team. So we are working on this actively through Nadia and her team as far as not only reviewing the our process, but reflecting back on the findings of OACH and how we need to make adjustments as we move forward.
Correct. So it really is performance based. It's one of those things that is a performance indicator, and I don't see that generally. We haven't added that in as a performance indicator as far as the division is concerned, whoever the folks are that do that. So I just ask if we can move to that because we're going to try to streamline things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The third, just on number 3, and I really think this is important, and the OACH doesn't give out N4s, TCHC gives out N4s. But for tenants, from a tenant perspective, and I'm looking at all the tenants here now, if you've missed one payment or you're late in your payment and you're generally a good paying tenant, I can't tell you how upset tenants get to get an N4. It's like, oh my God, I'm just 3 days late and now I'm getting an N4. And they get really upset because they feel like they're in the same space as somebody who's defaulted on their rent for 4 or 5 months.
You feel like a criminal.
You feel like a criminal. And I've had tenants rush up to me when I've been out in different sites and they tell me that, oh, how come I got that? They feel terrified because it says pay your rent or you're out the door. So I think there has to be, and I would ask you to think about this, both sides, OACH and Nadia, a letter that accompanies that. It says, we know you've just missed this, we know this is what we're obligated to do in case you don't pay, but we know that you have good intentions. In other words, you're not a criminal, you've just missed it, to soften that. Because from this tenant committee, the worst thing you can do, there's probably what percentage of tenants are just don't pay their rent a lot. There's a few, probably 5%. But the ones who are late every once in a while, to get the N4 is like a big slap in the face. And John, you hear what I'm saying, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. It's as if the city of Toronto is going to repossess your house for missing a tax payment.
Right. It's terrifying. So I just wonder if we can find a way to have a more elegant way to have our requirement, which is to let somebody know that they've got to pay, and that we're not treating the kind of busy single mom who missed that payment or sent it late or whatever the same as the retrograde that just doesn't care about paying because they're
Nadia,
both in
would you
the
like
same
to
position.
offer commentary on that?
So through you, Chair Campbell, absolutely, Councillor Fletcher, I can take that away and work with our communications department to ensure that we either have a complimentary letter that goes in the package or we look at the wording. I don't know, I may have to work with Dara and the legal team just to make sure. I don't know if we can actually edit the language in the official N4 letter or if we need to do
it's
a
N4,
supplementary document.
yeah,
so that's
it's a
something I can
supplementary.
work with
Yeah.
Paula Knight and the communications team on. Absolutely. And I should also flag that operations will be doing a report back on the OACH findings in the November meeting. So after this meeting and hearing some of the recommendations, we can start to action and look at the next steps. And so we can provide an update in the report coming back in November on that as well.
Thank you. Uba, you had your hand up?
Oh, it's okay. You already covered
Okay.
a lot of tenants get anxiety when they see that letter says you will be evicted. That's all they see sometimes.
Yeah, that's it.
So thank you, Nadia, for taking that back.
So one of the statistics that caught my eye, Summer, was the one under 3.1 mandate expansion of the OACH. Reasons for sending files back to TCHC. I guess 90 files were sent back. In 27 cases, the arrears had been already been paid in full. So I guess the question is why were those files sent to the OACH? Obviously it was unnecessary to send them. And that contributes to the workload because they've got to all be reviewed and then they're sent back. Why were those files sent to OACH?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I were to speculate, I would suggest that there was pressure on TCHC staff to get files to OACH sooner because of the length of time had been taking in the past to refer files to us. And I think this is where there's room for improvement, where we can say, just because it's the second month and you haven't received that payment yet, if you're working with someone or they're going to be making the payment shortly, that's not a referral that needs to be made to the OACH. So it's a gap between when the file was referred to us and the ERO's first meeting that payment got made. And I think with some of the changes to the new ACP, that'll be mitigated.
Nadia, did you care to comment?
Absolutely. So through you, Chair Campbell, there is a gap between the actual referral and our team doing ongoing work with the tenant files. And so we do find that trying to meet the deadlines, and I know one of the things we were looking at is lowering the amount of time it takes to send a file to OACH. Sometimes it does take a little bit longer, and it also takes the tenant seeing that there's intervention from third parties to support that allows us to actually recoup the arrears. So I don't know, we might be able to look at some efficiencies around that, but given the gap between the referral date and when the OACH team is able to pick it up, there will always be a few files that we're able to work through and address the arrears in that time period.
Okay, yeah, I guess that would be the case. But I mean, in this case, there was like 30% of the files had wound up being paid. And in another 18%, they were already working with TCHC staff, but the file had been sent over to OACH, right? So I mean, we want them to respond quickly, but not when it's unnecessary, right? You know? Okay. All right. And I guess, do we have a sense as to the overall, is there a sense, and Jag, I guess this comes to you because you're the guy at the top, on a monthly basis of all of our tenants, all of our units, what percentage are not paid on time?
Through you, Chair Campbell, I don't have that number specifically. I think the vast majority of our tenants pay their rent on time without issue. And, you know, certainly what we are doing is reviewing our process, though, to understand, you know, how we can adjust to the OACH recommendations, as well as taking those pragmatic looks at some of the comments that you've made, such as, you know, if we are working well with the tenant and time-wise, it would indicate that we should be sending it over. You know, what is it that we need to exercise as discretion in order to make a better decision? Staff our TSC staff are working hard to ensure that they are keeping up on arrears and all. However, you know, there are times in which we need to exercise some judgment, and those are the things that we're looking at through our process.
I mean, I would gather that as a company, we have a monthly receivable of rent. And so, I mean, it would be great to know in the future what percentage of that receivable is actually received on an average. I mean, it's going to vary from month to month, but are we always getting in 90%? Is it 87%? Is it 93%? It would be nice to know. It would be interesting to know the extent of the problem, and then as a subset of that, has to be dealt with. The hard to collect is then flipped over to OACH.
Thank you for the question, Director or Chair Campbell. I think we have that information, and we can make it available to the committee in short order.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, Councillor Fletcher?
Just to follow up for that, given the new homes or whatever it is, when folks haven't paid, is there somewhere where you see if someone is a habitual late payer or it's just their first time? Is that some part of the process, or it's late, here you go, N4? Because I can't tell you how upsetting that is to people that have paid their rent for years and years and years on time, and then they have one problem, and now, as John says, they feel like, oh my God, I'm going to get evicted, I'm a criminal, everybody's after me. They're embarrassed with that heavy response. I mean, an N4, that's an eviction notice. So, and I know I'm just trying to find my way through this in a way that supports tenants and make sure we don't lose a lot of money.
So through you, Director Campbell, Councillor Fletcher, I will take that away and I will work to see if we could actually pull that data. I know we do know, to answer your question, Director Campbell, we do know the number of files. I just need to be able to do the analysis, and then we'll ask if we can actually pull the information on habitual late payers and whether we can have a different approach. So I'll need to take that away, but noted.
Thank you.
I mean,
Okay.
we have hubs so tenants can come in, and now they're all getting N4s. I wouldn't mind hearing from the tenants, our tenant representatives, about that. If they think that's helpful or they've ever run into this. I mean, I've run into it a few times.
In terms of collection, I asked this question of Summer, maybe staff has a little more insight. How do tenants pay? Dara, is this for you? Do they, I don't know who, do they pay by, post-dated check? Do they pay by e-transfer? Do they bring cash? How do they generally make payment?
Sorry, I don't know who
Yeah, go
Derek.
ahead.
So through the chair, Director Campbell, we actually just pulled this analysis through homes. So there's a variety of methodologies, I believe, and Richard, our Senior Director of Business Operations, can jump in if you have the data in front of you. There are a variety of methods, including pay directly from Ontario Works or ODSP. We also have, that's not pay direct, is it, Richard? Yeah, pay direct. We have pre-approval, so PAPs, pre-approved payments. As one of the mechanisms. We also have tenants that submit checks. So we actually have the breakdown. So we're starting to analyze that. So Richard, I don't know if you have more details on that you want to speak to.
By and large, the majority of our direct payments are through PAP. A small percentage are through direct payment, which is the subsidy actually paying TCHC directly. And we do see some interact work at our buildings.
So sorry, the staff just sent me the information. So internet banking is 39%. Direct pay from Ontario Works is 14%. Check is 4%. Draft is 3%. Debit machine is 1%. ODSP direct pay is 3%. So we do have a sense of that. So it's broken down. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Any further?
That doesn't add up to 100, does it? Sorry.
No, the other item is EFT is 36%.
Oh.
What's EFT? Sorry.
Electronic funds transfer.
Oh, so direct deposit, taking it out monthly. Is that what that is?
It's broken down. I'm going to need to understand this a little bit better as well.
Okay, that's very helpful,
Internet
Nadia.
banking,
Thank you.
that's 39%, so I don't know the distinction between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, John.
Any other questions or comments of the Commissioner of Housing Equity, Acting Commissioner? Okay, seeing none. A motion to receive the report. Moved by Marcel. Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Thank you, Summer. Thanks for the report.
Thank you.
Welcome, Summer.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. Next item is item 10A, the TCHC operational performance measures. So over to you, Nadia.
So John, I just want to clarify, I only wanted to hear if there's something that Nadia feels she needs to flag with the board as far as operational performances are concerned, not the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe I can do a quick overview. The focus will be arrears and vacancies, because I know that was a significant chunk of our last discussion. So I want to highlight those two pieces and then open it up to any questions. So in terms of vacancies, on figure 1 on page 5 of the report, or page 46 of your package, it gives a month-over-month overview of vacancy rates for the family portfolio. TCHC is working closely with the service managers to implement an action plan for addressing vacancies and has been taking immediate actions to address the issue. The vacancy rate has improved to 2.45% as of July 2022, down from 2.7% in June, with further work underway to continue reducing the rate. Operations staff are physically inspecting units that have been vacant for more than 6 months and are still coded as maintenance required. So we're continuing to do that work, and we're identifying a lot of those units already and transitioning them to the centralized waiting list at the city. In terms of arrears,
clap for that.
Sorry.
Use my clap feature.
It's moving in the right direction. I wanted
There
to
it is,
acknowledge the hard work of the staff, but also acknowledge that there's more work to be done. So we continue to do that work. In terms of arrears, the total arrears across TCHC for July 2022 was 26.57 million. Of this amount, 23.81 was in rent and parking arrears. Also, we wanted to note that we've transitioned from including the seniors portfolio in the data. TCHC is undertaking a review of the updated ACP, as Summer and the OHT mentioned, which was implemented in 2021 to find efficiency and better address tenancy concerns. We're taking arrears very seriously and have commenced a few different approaches and pilots in the regions to address them. Management has also developed a now fully operationalized tenant communications channel that will support a larger tenancy management community of practice through regular updates and development of best practices as it relates to tenancy management. I also wanted to acknowledge that we're looking at in-person training for that pillar as well, particularly the TSC. So we did a lot of the training over COVID online, specific to homes and for issuing the new arrears collection process, and we've identified some gaps. So to answer your earlier question, Councillor Fletcher, we did identify that some staff, particularly the newer staff, have some gaps in terms of when to issue, when to escalate to the OH team, and what the OH approach is. So we're working with Barbara's team, LNOD, Learning and Organizational Development, to provide supplementary in-person training for all of those staff, and we plan to have 2 to 3 sessions before the end of the year as well. So that's
great.
high-level updates. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Uba?
No question, just comment. Thank you so much, Nadia and your team. It's great to see the reduction gap in terms of the vacancy. That was great, actually. Thanks a lot.
That's great. Okay, motion to receive the report. This report 10A. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. All in favor? Item 10B, we have a deputant.
That's correct. I believe Ms. Herring is on the line.
Yes, hello, I'm on the line. I'm talking about the tenant complaint process. The tenant complaint process is flawed and does not come up with fair resolutions for tenants. Everything's one-sided, only for staff. I took some complaints to solutions team to get resolutions. The simple ones got resolved, usually maintenance ones. When I got to the antisocial behavior, nothing was resolved. In fact, the file was closed based on management lies given to solutions team and the ombudsman's office. Solution and ombudsman's office take staff's word for things. This is not always true. Our staff add things to what the tenant responded to. Like what happened to me, I said I didn't make these comments, and the staff added, however, she says she jokes this way all the time, and the superintendent should mind her own business. This was added to discredit me. This was told to Solutions and the Ombudsman's office. To be fair to tenants, official minutes have to be taken and a copy sent to the tenant to make sure it is actually what they said and needs to be corrected in the minutes. This would clarify what was really said, not what staff wants to put down to punish the tenants. In my neighborhood, there are many staff that do not like tenants and put down things that are fake, as did 2 tenants, 1 TCHC employee who lived in my building, plus 1 complained to the Toronto Housing, Animal Control, and to the police, and should have been charged for public mischief. This number of complaints goes down is not a sign of less complaints. Many tenants like myself stop bringing complaints to Solutions team because there's no resolution. But by not resolving complaints, tenants are targeted and treated abusively, intimidated, and harassed by staff and other tenants. Management has said to me staff are not supposed to tell other tenants issues with management to other tenants in the building. Well, I hate to tell you, but they do. Our privacy must be protected to prevent us from being targeted. Tenants and staff need to provide what they are saying is true, with photos, text messages between both parties, security reports, police reports, and camera footage on the event. There has been many staff who do not like certain tenants and write them up with false allegations and get other staff members to back them up. They cover up for each other. When no resolution is not found, the abuse of tenants still continue and labeled to be under these false allegations that remain in their file. What is the timeline for a warning letter to remain in a tenant's file? Tenants should have access to their file as upon their request. Tenants have the right to have a witness at a meeting with management to avoid staff from ganging up on the tenant. Management has many people present, and the tenant has to come by themselves, which isn't fair. The solution should be dissolved, since no resolutions are found through them, and the Ombudsman's office should not partner with TCHC because that affects their decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Questions of the deputant? No. Veronica, I have a question. You said that the issues related to maintenance were handled promptly, but not antisocial behavior?
Yes.
How many instances of antisocial behavior have you encountered that you didn't feel had been dealt with?
Well, I've had several. I've had one that the old superintendent wrote in, and the staff that worked with her are carrying it on now. And I've had people say things I said I didn't say. And I've had a lot of that kind of issue. A lot of people here are very antisocial and don't even care that they're hurting people, and it's just to the point where, this can't go on. Something has to be done. You have to either bring back conflict resolution, or something has to change, because this is not a way to live anymore.
Is the antisocial behavior prevalent in your particular floor or your particular building?
My building is real bad for antisocial behavior.
Okay, all right, and okay, I think that's what we'll just leave it at that. All right, well, thank you for bringing your concerns to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on the item, any questions from committee members?
I just wanted to clarify one thing, Chair. The Ombudsman doesn't work with TCHC. The Ombudsman would be investigating as a neutral party. I believe that to be the case. And if there's specific instances where that deputant believes that's not the case, then they should flag that in writing. But we do have to be careful that the Ombudsman is independent, and they may hear both sides of the story, and then they may support one side or the other. That's how that position works, right?
Yes, thank you for that. And my question for staff was, is what we just heard, is that indicative of complaints from other tenants that may arise from time to time?
So through you, Chair Campbell, we do have a variety of complaints, including antisocial behavior, which is a significant percentage of the complaints. So it is indicative. Having said
I'm
that,
thinking, and sorry, you may be misunderstood. I'm thinking in terms of a tenant not feeling that they're being heard properly and their issues being addressed.
It's fairly new to me in terms of a tenant communicating that issue. So I would have to follow up with the team. But to my understanding, most of the tenants that we've worked with through the solutions team find resolution involving the office.
And so in this particular instance, will we plan to do something to reach out to the tenant?
Yeah, so my team and I will absolutely reach out to the tenant in question. We have the contact information.
Right.
I've already worked with the regional team to get some particular context on the complaints that are being raised today. And so the team will continue to work closely with her.
Great, thank you. Okay, motion to receive the report. Moved by Uba, all in favor, thank you. Next item is the Violence Reduction Program Update Q2. And although this was discussed in the private session, we would like to review it here. And Nadia, do you want to just provide a quick snapshot of the report?
Sure. So this is an update report on the Violence Reduction Program strategy. It includes the CSU component that is led by Al Britton, Senior Director, and his team. So Al can speak to any specific questions on CSU and some of the updates there. It also includes a community service and support component that's led through the community safety and support pillar, led by Lukwa and Kala and the regional managers under community safety and support. So Al and Lukwa, I don't know if you're there. I don't see your cameras on, but we're happy to take any specific questions that the committee may have in relation to the report. We had a brief discussion at CSAC as well, and so open to receiving any questions the committee may have.
Committee members? Questions? Okay, I have a question. Discuss about CSU staff. This is just on page 2 of the report. CSU staff supporting revitalization communities within VRP, Regent Park, talks about an increased CSU presence. And I'm just wondering, when we talk about a slow improvement in the area, anticipate a continued improvement, if you could be a little more, specific as to what do we mean by an improvement and what constitutes an improvement?
Yes, good morning, Chair Campbell. I can certainly speak from the CSU standpoint, and if Liko would kind of add from the development standpoint, I think it would be a more holistic answer. From the CSU standpoint, we want to see a reduction in antisocial behavior. We want to see enhanced feelings of safety and security, where people feel that they're able to take their kids to the park, take them out to go to their cars safely, to walk in the area safely. Those are things that we try to measure through the reduction of the antisocial behavior and the enhancement of the feeling and perception of safety and security. Liko, I don't know if there's anything you would like to add to that.
Thank you, Al. Through the chair, we also want to see folks being able to congregate safely, particularly for the young people. There were times when young people in areas like Regent Park, which is a development area in the VRP area, would get into trouble from the police and other folks because they would be hanging out in groups. That was just because they had nowhere else to go. So they would just be hanging out in the winter. You'd find them in the underground parking garages. So part of what our teams have been doing through the special constables, community safety advisors, and the community service coordinators is creating opportunities for them to access space. Earlier in the year, one of the spaces was used, and this is a public space, one of our tenant spaces was used as a study hall for young people who are getting ready for exams, a place they could come together and be able to study together and be safe as they head back home. I'm working with Youth Empowering Youth. We actually did a survey of the spaces and the space needs for young people, and we're working with them to be able to create those opportunities to do programming, get access to supports. So as Al said, that feeling of safety, knowing that they can come out, even though the area is, so Regent Park, Lawrence Heights, these are areas that are reflected in our category 4 chronic gun violence areas. But those instances happen here and there. But there are many times when people can feel safe to come out into the open.
Great, thank you. And Alan, in terms of recruitment, I went out on a ride along and you had some new recruits. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the complement that you have and the next wave of officers to come onto the field.
Yes, Director Campbell. It was, first of all, it was a pleasure to host you for the ride along, and I hope you saw the great work of our staff, because they do work diligently each day. And in regards to the class, we were very fortunate to put a class out into the field, and the class, it was 12 special constables who have been deployed throughout each of our 3 districts. Many of them bring a wide variety of diversity experiences and cultures. They really were very fortunate to receive a high level of training from our highly qualified training staff, and were very positive at the end of their graduation ceremony. Each of those special constables are working closely with training staff and working in the field themselves on occasion as they have kind of finalizing their training now with their coach officer. In the next plans is there's another class starting on October 3rd, I believe I think it's the Monday, it's the 3rd. And the class will, again, we're trying to finalize the numbers because our staff have to receive their background checks from Toronto Police. So we're hoping that would be in the 10 to 15 range, but we're waiting to see what the final number is that have passed their background checks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from committee members? No? Okay.
Yes, no, on
Yes.
that, I just
Oh.
wanted to know, those aren't new staff because the complement's been frozen, correct, Al?
Councillor Fletcher, these are staff for replacing the attrition.
Replacing, yeah.
Replacing,
the
yes.
attrition.
We've less.
That's all. Yep,
Yes.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Because the complement remains the same. Thank you so much. And ride along is a very police term. I'm just going to say that because part of our discussion is how policey are we compared to community-based. So just FYI, Mr. Chair.
I was a guest.
FYI, Mr. Chair.
I will say I was a community guest.
You're the chair of the committee.
Yes, well, I wouldn't know what else to use. I was riding along and
Well, John,
quite enjoyed the
Mr. Chair, I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
I just think we should be careful of the language we're using. We're not a police force. Thank you.
No. Okay, so motion, yes, Marcel. Marcel, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to know of the like the constables and stuff. Are there any that identify as Indigenous?
Director Charlebois, I would have to defer to HR on that because again, we don't keep any statistics on that as far as at the unit level. But I can certainly deal with or there's Barbara. I don't know, Barbara, if you can assist on that.
I think you're asking about the new hires, Marcel, because we've asked that information be kept for all hiring since you didn't keep it before. So I'm expecting that will be there.
Through the chair, I can confirm that HR collects information through the hiring process. So while I don't have that information with me today, I can confirm that we are collecting that information, which is available for candidates to respond to on a voluntary basis. So we do collect that information.
Okay.
Marcel, sorry,
Yeah.
John, but I guess that this is part of our conversation around the CSU because from the very beginning, and Debbie isn't here, it's a conversation about what that complement looks like. And we know that the entire management complement up until recently was all white, many of them from the police. And I would assume that I'm just shocked that if you're coming on in this organization to be hired as a special constable, that you can choose yes or no to answer that question. And if you say no, that you're still advancing. That's quite shocking to me, Barbara. Given the importance that our committee and our board has placed on this matter, and Marcel has just raised it again.
Through the chair. So certainly Toronto Community Housing embraces diversity, and we are looking to ensure that we have broad representation of equity deserving groups across all divisions and at all levels in our organization. It is a best practice in collecting this data through the hiring process that candidates are not obliged or compelled to respond to that question. But it is typically voluntary. As part of our work with the EDI strategy, what we want, of course, is to encourage our employees and encourage candidates to feel safe and comfortable with sharing that information with us. It is a work in progress. We will track, we will monitor, we will report out on diversity representation in the organization, and we'll look to see trends of increased representation. And that's our goal, that's our objective, and we're happy to bring a report back to future committee that would provide information on the representation of our workforce.
Anything further?
Marcel has his hand.
Marcel?
Yeah. Is it possible? I don't know if you're actually doing that right now, but is it possible when you're actually doing the recruitment process to maybe send information like to certain Native agencies that have clients that are looking for employment through like such as Native Canadian Center, Midway Beak Employment and Training, Ontario Federation of Indian Friendship Centers, those types of places, even some of the universities like, it's not Ryerson anymore, I forget the new name, but they also have like, they have an Indigenous type program where people are in for like doing social work and social justice and those type of things. Is it possible to maybe start to look at outreaching to those agencies just to, you know, be more visible? That's the right way of saying it.
Absolutely. Through the chair, Director Charlebois, thank you. And I can confirm and proudly say that we are doing significant outreach to Indigenous communities as well as a wide array of diverse communities, but we are absolutely outreaching to a number of Indigenous organizations already as part of our commitment to advancing increased representation and working closely with the Indigenous community.
Thank you.
John? Paula Fletcher.
Yep.
Ms. Shulman, you've said that's a best practice, but the board could determine that it's not our best practice, that our practice would be to make that a requirement, given all the conversation that we've had. So would that be a motion from the board? How would you like to proceed?
Sorry?
We could certainly take that back and consider. I don't know if there are any restrictions that would be upon us, and I probably would want to work closely with my colleague, the General Counsel. I'm certainly happy to explore that further, Councillor.
I'm into exploring it immediately, and that it's best practice to allow people to self-select if they wish to answer those questions. But we've started this conversation about the racial makeup of the complement of the CSU 2.5 years ago. Well, 2019. So that's 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, and we still don't have it. So I am very clear that if that's only a best practice and we can require that, it's a requirement, then we can make the decisions in that way. And I think that when we have this, I don't know how to proceed, Mr. Chair, but I'm not satisfied with this.
So why don't you, in view of
I'm not satisfied with this. Pardon? Can't hear you.
Sorry, in view of this report coming forward, why don't you make a motion that staff come back and report further on what you'd like to see?
Yes, I'd like staff to report on making that a requirement. And that
a requirement for self-identification in
the application process.
In the
correct.
application process.
And I think that I really, I'm quite concerned because that has been a very clear message from the board, from this committee over and over and over again. And here we are with new recruits where we don't have that information again. So either, I guess probably to discuss that with whomever, but I'm not satisfied with that. I'm quite concerned about it, actually.
Okay, so Dara, can you add an addendum to that, to the receipt of information that staff report back on how it might go about a self-identification question for the recruitment process at CSU?
There is a self-identification process, but it's not required. The difference, John. You can decide to do it or not. It's not a requirement.
Right.
So it's making it a requirement.
So if I understand the request, the proposal is for TCHC management to report back on TCHC's ability to require applicants for employment with TCHC's CSU division to self-identify their demographic characteristics?
Correct, but I don't want to report that. Okay, we can leave it
Well,
at that. I'll let Debbie know.
I think a report, because there may be a legal implication there, because whenever I've seen a self-identification report, you can always choose other, or I prefer not to say. So I would like to hear from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
If in the
But-
hiring process, we can compel people to identify.
Correct. Maybe we can't, but if somebody doesn't wish to identify, then really and truly, is that a candidate? So I'll ask on the recruitment, how many of the 12 new officers identified? Maybe that's an easier way to do that, Ms. Shulman.
So through the chair, I don't have that information available with me, but I will look into that and certainly happy to share with you the information that I'm able to.
So maybe it's not even required, but as far as one of the criteria, somebody who's not willing to share and doesn't understand the importance of this information might not be a good recruit. So I'm sure it's part of the overview of the recruiting process. That should be easy to do. This
So
isn't going away,
Sarah,
people.
you
This is
can-
not going away.
You
No.
can let us know the legal implications of requiring somebody, and I can't imagine that you can write it in stone that if somebody doesn't self-identify that they'll not be hired. That's a discriminatory practice.
Well, let's just hear how we can
Well,
ensure
exactly. Let's
that
hear
our
from
compliments.
let's hear from the
Yep.
legal minds, and let's take it from there. All right.
I'll be.
Report back at a following.
I will
at a
also
subsequent
be
meeting.
following up
Sounds good.
with other legal minds. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Who wants to make that motion? Councillor Fletcher, you'll make that motion to receive and then that report,
Yep.
please. All right. All in
Yep.
favor? Okay, that concludes, thank you, that's approved. That concludes our meeting. Motion to adjourn. Marcel moves a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the committee members, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.